right, folks, so let's review the steps leading to World War II. The first thing we need to talk about is the three Axis powers, which are Japan, Italy, and Germany. So you probably want to make an annotation on the steps to World War II. You might want to name them Axis powers. World War II, unlike World War I, in World War I we can say the date of the war started the day the Archduke Franz Ferdinand died. In World War II, we cannot say that. In World War II, you have a Pacific front, the Pacific War involving Japan, which is, historians will date the start of World War II there in 1931. In the European theater, it is 1939. So what happens in 1931? Well, remember that Japan has a couple economic things working against it. One, the Great Depression. They're having an overpopulation control problem. So where they had always exported their extra population to, for example, the United States, because of the Great Depression, the U.S. had banned Japanese immigration. So what they're having to do is they're having to expand their industry. When you expand your industry, you need materials and you need, not just natural resources, you need raw materials and natural resources. So they're needing raw materials for their factories and markets. There's also, as Japanese problems increase, you're having this increased nationalism. Japan is changing. They decide to do what the Europeans have done, and they want to make China their own colony. So in 1931, they're going to invade Manchuria. As a result, the League of Nations is going to be upset. Japan will respond by leaving the League of Nations. In addition, then in 1937, they will begin the mainland invasion of China, which we will see next class when we watch the video, when we talk about civilians at war. Then we move to Italy. Remember Mussolini wanting to restore the glory of Rome. In the 1890s, Ethiopia was invaded by the Italians, and the Italians were so defeated by the Ethiopian army that Ethiopia, if you remember from imperialism, was one of the two countries non-imperialized. However, in 1935, Mussolini, wanting to build Italy's colonial empire, he begins the invasion of Italy. Italy invades Ethiopia. Ethiopia by this time is not a strong military power. It is a very easy defeat for the it is a very easy victory for the Italians. They go to the League of Nations, and so they go, so the Italians have an easy victory. They also face sanctions by the League. The League of Nations does little to help the Ethiopians. Then you have, which we talked about, Hitler yesterday, the policy of appeasement. So he's going to take the Rhineland in 1936. At this point, remember, the troops were told that if they see anything, any French army movement to return, they did not see that. Then you see,
I never get my shower.
and you ruin, sorry about that, guys. So Hitler moves into the Rhineland. They do nothing. The Anschluss, and you need that term, the Anschluss, is when Hitler goes into Austria, the Sudetenland, and then eventually he'll take Czechoslovakia, and then the war will begin in 1939 when he invades Poland. His goal is to create living space for the German people. They are a superior race. He needs to expand their influence. So how does this lead us to World War I? Well, when Hitler gets put into power, the first thing he is going to do is defy the Treaty of Versailles. He defies the Treaty of Versailles by, one, expanding the army. He begins to rearm Germany. In 1936, like I said, he took the Rhineland. Germany is becoming stronger and stronger and stronger. France and Britain are in the middle of the Great Depression and still feeling the effects of the Great Depression. The United States is still practicing isolationism, so he is not being put into check. Like I said, annex means he takes Austria. Again, nobody is stopping Hitler as he is taking these moves. Every piece of territory he takes, he becomes stronger. In 1938, you have the appeasement policy come in full force. When Hitler takes part of Czechoslovakia, Britain and France are allied with Czechoslovakia. So this is the first country, they have an alliance with them. They are supposed to protect them. The Munich Conference is a meeting. Look at the countries that attend the Munich Conference. Italy, Germany, Great Britain, France. Remember, Great Britain is represented by Neville Chamberlain, who is a supporter of appeasement. He is a supporter of appeasement. So the USSR and Czechoslovakia were not invited. That is going to push the USSR. That is going to make them angry because the Soviet Union, because Stalin feels that the West is pushing Hitler towards the East. Let communism and fascism battle. That's what his feeling is. 1939, he takes the rest of Czechoslovakia. This is very important, this non-aggression pact. Hitler knows when he invades Poland, he becomes a great threat to Stalin. He does not want what happens in World War II. He does not want a two-front war like Germany had to fight in World War I. He knows he can't win that war. So, he signs this agreement for 10 years. Hitler and Stalin will not attack each other. They are dividing Poland. They are beginning mutual trade relationships. In fact, a lot of oil that will be used in the invasion of Western Europe is coming from the Soviet Union. So this non-aggression pact is very, very vital and will allow Hitler to turn his army eastward and will allow him to invade Poland. He is not worried about Britain and France because they haven't stood up for anything. Britain and France will declare war when Germany invades Poland. Hitler, remember, and Stalin, when Hitler invades, he will take one half of Poland. Stalin will come back and they will literally divide Poland between them, which will set up a conflict with Stalin and his allies at the end of World War II. U.S., we've talked about it. FDR, President of the United States, wants to get involved. He has to deal with an isolationist Congress, neutrality acts, not allowing them to enter the war. They're doing everything they can to avoid the war. FDR knows the U.S. has to get involved, but he has to take small steps to get the U.S. involved. However, at this point, the U.S. is saying it's Europe's problem, not us. It doesn't affect us. And that is where we're leaving. What is going to happen is, remember, then in 1940, you will have those major battles, which you're going to be working on next, that will lead Hitler through Western Europe very quickly. And when 1940 and Hitler goes into Western Europe, that's when Roosevelt will be able to move the nation with the Lend-Lease policy. So until next time, goodbye guys, have a good evening.